Today I'm going to show you how to sew really easy and fast stretch bow bands. I have included the printable pattern pieces for this project linked below in the description box, and they come in sizes for preemies all the way up to adults. Make sure that you like this video and subscribe, and leave me a comment below if there's a pattern with a tutorial that you want to see. My subscribers who do this, I choose 2 every single week, and I give them a $50 gift card to use on my sewing patterns, and I make their pattern for them for free. Once you have your pattern printed out, go ahead and trace it onto your fabric and cut it out. Make sure you're using a stretch fabric that when it's stretched left to right, it stretches for you for this headband. You're going to fold your headband fabric in half with the pretty sides of the fabric together. So the wrong side of the fabric should be facing you. Go ahead and pin or clip it in a few places if you need to, and do the same thing for the small rectangle that will be the center of your bow. Then we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and using your machine's zigzag stitch, you're going to sew the headband all the way down about 1 centimeter seam allowance, and using a straight stitch, sew that bow center down. Go ahead and start sewing and stop sewing with a back stitch, and don't forget you're using a zigzag stitch here. You're using a zigzag stitch on this fabric piece because you want that fabric to still be able to stretch. And a zigzag stitch on a regular sewing machine will allow the fabric to do that. If you have a serger, you can also use a serger. With your bow center piece, you just need to use a straight stitch. And if you're a brand new sewer, my number 12, this is what a zigzag stitch setting looks like on a sewing machine. Just change it over to that for your main headband piece. Here are mine sewn. You can see the zigzag stitch here, and if I stretch it left to right, that stitch still allows it to stretch. This is the center of my bow, and I just use a straight stitch, and you can see it does not give any stretch because of that stitch that we used there. Now we need to flip these fabrics right side out, and the easy way to do this is just to get yourself a large safety pin, put it in the top corner of your fabric, and then push the safety pin down into the tube. Then you're going to cinch that fabric right over the safety pin and then pull it right over the end of it so that the fabric flips right side out. Once you've done that, make sure you open up that tube and smoothen out that seam, and you want the seam to be laying in the center of your fabric, just like I have here. Do the same thing for the headband tube here. Make sure you open up the seam to your headband as well, so that your seam is centered on one of the sides. You don't have to do this step, but I also like to give it a quick press to get out any wrinkles if my fabric is the type that wrinkles, and it also helps the center of that seam stay centered. Now go ahead and get this headband tube and fold it in half. You want the seam of the headband, like I have here, to be showing on the outside. Then using about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew together both of those open ends of your tube. Once you have that sewn, go ahead and clip off your excess fabric so that you leave about a 1/4 of an inch left. Then you're going to flip this right side out so that you can see the seam is hidden. Fold your headband right there at the seam and then place it flat. Now on the printable pattern pieces, there are guide marks that will tell you where to make this straight line like I've done here. You're going to measure from that seam all the way over and make a straight line with your pattern piece. Then you're going to use that straight line as your sewing guide. I would use chalk, a disappearing marker, or a pencil for something like this. If you only have a pen or something like that, that's okay. It'll get hidden. It's just nicer if you can make sure it's not seen. So now that line has sewn, and when you open it up, you can see the large hole for the headband and the small hole here is for your bow. Match up the center seam of your bow with the seam that you just sewed on the headband piece. When you lay it flat, it looks like this. Now, with all those sandwiched together, go ahead and cinch this to make it into a bow, just like this. An easy way to learn how to do that is to fold it in half and then fold out the outer edges and just pinch the sides with your fingers to hold that together. You can sew this all the way around so that it stays, but I'm making this for a preemie or newborn. They're not gonna rip at it. So I'm just going to use a really thin piece of ribbon. I double knot it on the back, and then I go ahead and clip off the excess ribbon that I have back there. Now we're going to get the bow center piece, and with the seam facing up, you're going to wrap this around the middle of the bow to hide where we just either sewed all the way around there with our hand stitching or with your ribbon. Pinch it in the back and pull the fabric as much as you can so that it stretches. You want to have your sewn line here as close to the headband as you can possibly get. So if you can stretch the ends of this center fabric out as much as you can before you sew, do that. If you want to hand stitch it, you can do that as well. Then you're going to clip off anything excess and then turn this right side out, right over the center of your bow piece. After you've done that, you are completely finished. These are so fast and easy, and if you want to make it for a toddler or an older baby or even an adult and you want to make sure that center piece stays on, I would suggest hand sewing it just so it doesn't slide left to right, but it's not necessary. If you sew it tightly around that center, it shouldn't come loose. Now, if you want to give it a cute look because you're making it for a baby shower, make a couple in coordinating colors and then just cut a piece of cardstock or cardboard and place these bows right over it. Cut it 1/2 inch less than the width of your headband. I hope you enjoyed my sewing tutorial. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You have no idea how much it really helps, and you'll be notified anytime a new pattern is released, and that is super easy to follow because I gear towards beginners. I have patterns for children, for babies, for household stuff, for adults, clothing, all kinds of stuff. So make sure you check us out at alohasewingcompany.com. And before you go, mahalo.